Why, hello, and welcome to our show. We are an hour late this week, and not because of me, not because of Zach, because of my entity changing hours around and wonderful, awesome things like that. Normally I don't work on Sundays though, so it's not a problem. But anyway, Zach, how's it going?
Fine.
Cool. What have you been up to all week? Same old, same old?
Work.
Work. So, anything exciting this week? Or just the same
really.
The same old? So, so I was thinking about this and I needed to share this on the show this week. So, had a customer come in today. And what were we doing? They had an iPhone 8 Plus, excuse me, came in for a battery swap today. Totally normal. I'm checking through some things, stuff like that. And as a general rule of thumb, and as a habit, I just close everything on people's phones.
There were a lot of tabs open, weren't there?
Actually, I don't remember. I don't think there were that many. Although I did do another phone later in the day, and yes, it had like 20 different apps open. Oh my goodness, Apple, when are you going to figure it out? You need a close all button. I'm surprised Apple still hasn't implemented that yet. It's been a thing on Samsung's.
20?
Huh?
Only 20?
I don't remember. But it was a bunch.
Numbers.
And I'm surprised that Apple has not implemented a close all button yet. It'd be nice. Samsung's done it. But they haven't. But anyway, so back to this iPhone 8 Plus, right? So I don't
Maybe they'll
think...
copy Apple and take it away. Be like, well, Apple doesn't have that.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. That would be dumb.
Yeah, well,
I love working on Samsungs where there's a bunch of
that Apple does.
I know. I love working on Samsungs where there's a bunch of stuff open because I can just go close all, boink, and it's all gone. Really, really easy. So anyway, no, I think they maybe only had like what was it? Like 4 or 5 apps open. I don't think it was that bad. I don't remember honestly. I do it, without even thinking about it now. It's just something that I do. So I know I'm not in anybody's stuff. So anyway, I was like, I don't remember. Did you have a bunch of stuff open? And they're like, I don't remember. I'm like, it's not super important. But they asked me. They were like, somebody told me, and maybe they misheard the person at the wireless store. But if what the person at the wireless store told them was true, you're going to be like, what the heck? And this is what I was told. They asked me, I was told, or maybe it wasn't asked, but they said something along the lines of, I was told it's bad for your battery to close stuff.
Oh my.
I was like, wait, what? Like, who told you that? Oh, the person at the wireless store? I'm like, okay, well, if that's true, they must have been smoking something. To which the person said, well, they probably actually were. But anyway. And then we had a conversation about, now cell phones are basically a computer, right? Now, Zach, what does a computer do with everything that is open? Where does it put it?
Is it in RAM?
Yeah, it puts it in memory, right? And the more stuff you stuff in there, the more what do you need?
I don't know.
Well, more
RAM,
resources,
maybe?
more resources, more power. So the more stuff you have open and sitting in the background, the more it's going to eat away at your battery. So this concept of, oh yeah, keeping all this stuff open and closing it is actually bad for the battery. I was just like, wait, what? Where did you hear that? Totally not true. Close your apps when you're not using them. So, Zach, if you were to look at your phone right now, how many open apps do you have open? How many apps do you have open?
2.
Really? You must not be as I had like one thing open there. I had Slack open because I was talking with you before the show. But generally when I'm done with something, it gets closed. So right now there's nothing running in the background on my phone besides the base operating system. So but yeah. And where's my battery at today? I'm at 70%. Where are you at?
23%.
Really?
I haven't charged it since Friday night.
Dang, do you actually get that good a battery?
I mean, I didn't overly use it yesterday.
I don't overly use my phone.
I mean, it's decent. It's not great.
I guess I charge my phone every day. I'm one of those.
Yeah, I normally do too. Because I normally use it enough that it will be empty by the time I'm going to bed. By empty, I mean like 30% or so, but...
Do you use your phone, like your personal phone, in the workplace for work-related things?
No.
Okay. See, that is different for me.
Because if I were to do that, then you have to put their stupid management app on there because of compliance reasons.
Really?
And yeah, I don't really need that junk on my phone.
So in my particular entity, we actually use our personal phones a fair amount for communication between individuals to individuals. So typically it is me and my manager texting each other about things that need to take place in the store, different tasks or specific products that need to be pulled, things like that, set aside for orders. So yeah, there's that. And then like if I need to call like a support team or something like that. So let's see how much I can say without giving away too much. But there are particular products that we sell in my entity that we have specific support staff for. They work closely with our vendors. So if we have a customer come in with a particular product and we maybe don't have as much information as we would like, and it's something rare that we're trying to track down, then we can call these support teams and give them some information. We can send them pictures of the product, and then they will go through and either reach out to our vendors or look back in call tracking and usually come up with a solution or tell us, yeah, this is an OEM thing that we can't get or something like that. But they're a great team. They're all super knowledgeable, which is awesome. But anyway, so yeah. Life update ish. Nothing is set in stone. There is a potential that I could be moving.
Are you moving too?
So here's the thing. So I am currently working with kind of like the state of Iowa, their workforce development team and things like that. So a couple things that are on that are in front of me right now. So I could potentially so here's what I figured out is that I don't think college is for me. I don't think it's for me. I continue to struggle with it. And so what we are going to maybe explore is, rather than like a traditional classroom setting for myself, and academics have always been something that I've struggled with, but rather than maybe a traditional classroom setting, is looking at doing some kind of apprenticeship And so there are some apprenticeships in the state of Iowa for like IT stuff that are already set up, but most of them are in, I think one of them is like Council Bluffs and the other one is like in Des Moines. So if I end up doing one of those, I'd obviously be moving towards that location, either or. Then I guess my understanding is that there is still somewhat of an educational component with it, but you basically work for the company and get paid while you're like learning on the job. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not like an internship, it's an apprenticeship. So it's like an internship, but with more perks. And there's a potential that we could look at doing something closer to this area, potentially. COVID-19 is the thing right now, so there's a lot of unknowns with a lot of stuff. The other thing that I am considering, potentially, is do I advance with my current employer and look at the possibility of being a store manager? And if I do that, I would want to move into the district of my previous district manager, because I really, really respect my previous district manager. He respects me, and he actually was the one who had mentioned to my current store manager that he felt that I would do well in that role. So, that's an encouraging thing. And so that's, what I really like about this guy is that he knows how to, kind of fight for you if you truly believe in something and say, hey, this is maybe something we should explore. At the same time, he knows how to like push you as well to be better and things like that, which is really awesome. So if I did that, I'd be moving probably towards either Wisconsin or Illinois. So this guy's district is in Chicago. So, and something like that probably looks like a year as like an ASM, an assistant store manager in a store or something like that. And then moving on to like having my own store. So,
I don't know if I could do that.
You don't have the personality for it.
No, I guess not.
Yeah, no, I don't think, and it's not that you're not capable of doing it, because I think you probably would be, in the grand scheme of things. It's just, it's not, that's not your personality.
A lot of people could, in theory, do it.
Yeah, in terms of like from the operations side of it, I think you probably have a decent learning curve, but I think you could tackle the operational side of it. But that's only one half of it. Obviously, there's the operational side of it, and then there is the people management side of it. And I've done management before, so and it comes with its benefits, but it comes with its drawbacks too. So especially if you're a store manager, because, yes, I would technically have a district manager, but a lot of it's on me. So, but anyway, so yeah, so those are what I'm exploring. That it shouldn't affect anything that is happening here, with our show though, because obviously it doesn't necessarily matter where I'm at. Because our show can be done remotely anywhere, basically. So, as long as we have an internet connection, which is the beauty of things like this. So, anyway. Yeah. So, I actually did a decent amount of prep for this show this week. We've got some good topics, I think, to go over this week. So, we've been talking about it. Apple Silicon. Apple Silicon. There are some possibly leaked specs. Not a ton is super known yet in these specs, I don't think. I don't think we have any performance numbers. But there's some leaks about it. We're going to talk about TSMC and their capacity in terms of producing chips. Of course, Microsoft news. Oh, this is hilarious. It involves Edge this week. Something hilarious happened.
Of course it does.
We'll talk about that.
Edge.
We look at Apple's dilemma with right to repair. Are they for it? Are they against it? What's going on? And we didn't cover it. We're going to cover some stuff about it, I think, here. A couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a week ago, Twitter got hacked, and got hacked, like, pretty good, I think. Like, the biggest hack that Twitter has ever had. Did you hear about that?
I didn't. Well, yes, I did, but I don't think that it was decided that it was a hack. I think it was decided it was a bit of social engineering, wasn't it?
It was a little bit of both. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
And then maybe a couple other things. YouTube is apparently removing all Danish music from the platform. Something with, like, licensing. Yeah.
Of course, it's licensing.
Yeah, something with licensing. So
why would it be anything else?
Anyway, with that, let's roll the intro. So yes, let's kick the show off right away with specs for Apple's first Apple Silicon MacBook have leaked. That's what it is. So as we've been talking about, Apple is planning to transition away from Intel and their apparent downfalls. Now, yes, Intel has some downfalls right now, especially, you know, with their manufacturing process and things like that. We've been talking about that. It's been a big giant joke. At the same time, I think some of it falls on Apple a little bit. I mean, like, what is a processor going to do if it doesn't, like, okay, let's talk about this real quick. Form over function. Or, form over function, right?
I think that's really all you need to say.
Apple's pretty well known for that, form over function. And they don't necessarily design the best cooling solutions into their devices. Now, a funny thing happens, Zach. I don't know if you know about this.
Enlighten me.
I guess it's something that that not a lot of people know. But apparently the rumor is that processors don't actually perform all that well if they're not cooled well. I don't know. Have you heard this rumor? I don't know if it's true or not.
Heard something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what processors will do when they're not cooled correctly. Okay, actually, you know, here's a great thing. Zach, what do processors do when they're not cooled correctly, when they overheat?
They turn off.
Well, yeah, they turn off, but first they throttle down. They drop their performance to keep themselves from cooking themselves. What a novel idea. And so it's no secret that Apple just doesn't build the best cooling solutions into their laptops. And so that's why I say that I think that there's part of this that is Apple's fault here for some of the quote-unquote downfalls of Intel processors. Wasn't it? I don't remember what lineup it was, but like, yeah, you basically couldn't get to the actual clock speeds of what the processor was supposed to be because it would just like thermal throttle before it actually got there. Do you remember that?
Wasn't it one of the i9 MacBooks?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
So yeah, and the sad part is like you couldn't even get to stock, to the stock, clock speeds of it because it would just run too hot in the chassis. So yeah. But here's the thing. So with Apple's move to their own silicon, it's going to unify everything from the iPhone to the iPad to the Macs, things like that. And we'll talk about that in a second. I think there's some interesting things in here. But basically, so Apple Silicon is going to be based on ARM. So there'll be a custom ARM processor that's created with Apple software and products in mind. And I mean, Apple already does everything else, so why don't they make the silicon that runs their devices as well too? And they already do in some cases with the iPhone and the iPad. And I will say that those devices are actually pretty snappy. I know that you don't typically use Apple products, Zach, but when you have to admit that they are rather snappy.
They are. I mean, it kind of comes with it when you're in control of every single aspect of the product, It gives them a significant advantage there.
That is true, exactly. Look, there's a lot of things that I think both me and you can agree on that Apple does right. There's also a lot of things that we can both agree on that Apple does wrong. But we're both fair. I'll give credit where credit is due, and I'm sure you will as well. But yeah, you have to admit that the iPhone, the iPad are actually decently well-running devices. Which makes a difference. I mean, let's put an iPad up against, a Samsung tablet. Which one's going to feel snappier? Probably the iPad. So the first Macs are due to be released later this year. And actually, what's interesting? So I heard that apparently the new iPhone lineup, presumably the iPhone 12, isn't actually going to probably launch in September. It's going to be delayed.
Interesting. Do they ever do that?
I don't think so, but you also have to remember that we're in a very interesting.
Yeah, it's probably because of COVID though too.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking. I haven't read anything on the articles yet. I just know that I've seen reports that the iPhone or the lineup of iPhones, at least I'm pretty sure it's iPhone, I would imagine. The release is probably going to be delayed. And I would imagine that it might be for logistical reasons. It could honestly be from I don't know, I'm speculating. It's possible it could be due to production. Maybe they're just not being able to produce the quantity that they would like to have. I don't know. It could also be that Apple products are freaking expensive, and if there's a bunch of people out of work, they're not going to have the extra money to go spend on a brand new device. And again, I'm just speculating here as to what the reasoning may have been, and it could be a combination of things. It probably is a combination of things, but anyway, so yeah, which is interesting. So I wonder if this, and of course, I think this is all just speculation here as well, but that does make me wonder, do we actually see Apple Silicon roll out in a device this year? Or will that be pushed back as well? So, anyway, so Apple is apparently going to be starting with rumored to be starting with a 12-inch MacBook. It's going to weigh less than a kilo. So Apple is still on this whole thin and light thing. Although, I mean, ARM processors are designed to be used in ultra-portable devices.
That they are.
So we might not run into those same issues. And, yeah, so they're going to use an Apple A14X processor. So I guess that's the new generation of the new processor they're going to be designing for this. And it's expected to deliver users, get this, a 15 to 20 hour battery life.
Well, that's all well and good, but what does it mean?
That is true, because ARM processors are known for being these very kind of ultra low, what am I looking for? Low powered kind of, like chips.
Well, whenever you talk about battery, it's always
There's a trade-off.
There's so many factors that go into it, and nobody measures it the same, so it's really tough to even gain anything.
Right. What does this mean? Does this mean on an average 15 to 20 hours? Does this mean standby? Does this mean...
What was the computer doing, really, at the end of the day is what we need to know.
Right, exactly. Well, it's just rumored. But now let me say this. Look, if you can build a device with a decent amount of performance for generally light tasks, let's say web browsing, email, something that the average like person in an office would be doing. We're not talking the pro. Although even if you're a pro, that'd be pretty cool. But let's just start with the average person, right? A 15 to 20 hour battery life, depending on how much you're doing, you could almost leave the charger at home or presumably you're at the office, right? You could almost potentially leave, the charger at work and bring the device home for the weekend and be fine. And if you can get 15 to 20 hours of battery life doing more high-powered stuff, like, and I don't think you're going to be able to. I don't think that's realistic, but doing things like Photoshop, so editing, Premiere, After Effects, things like that, which are high energy, that would be really, really amazing. Although I think if you're looking at that, you have to take a really good look at what is the performance you're getting, because again, yeah, better battery life, but there's a trade-off somewhere there. Generally. Now, the alleged specification comes from Apple Lab, and it claims the device will cost, any guesses?
A lot?
Well, you know what? Let me give you some more information, okay?
I don't know.
It'll support USB-C charging ports for charging and connectivity. I don't know how many, presumably probably like 2. Hopefully it's like at least more than 1. It will, and I'm guessing that the cost here is probably the low end here, but it will reportedly ship with either 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, either 256 or 512 gigabytes of onboard storage, and a whoop-de-frickin' ding-dong-doo 720p camera for FaceTime HD support. 720p? We're in 2020!
That's pretty sad.
Although 720p technically is HD.
Sure.
Technically. But come on, 720p and a laptop? I'm sure we're putting 4K cameras in cell phones these days.
Webcams are generally really low res for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I'm presuming a 12-inch, 8 gig, 256 storage option. Any particular guesses as to what pricing is going to be on this? It's actually probably no. It's under 1,000.
I don't know. What is it?
800. Rumored. It's not confirmed. Rumored.
Does seem a bit low for a Mac computer.
Here's the thing about this, though. If Apple is producing its own chips, it's probably cheaper than going to Intel. There's probably there's I'm sure there are some cost savings there. Right. There are some cost savings there, I'm sure. What would be interesting to see is how much. Now, on some Apple products, for sure, there is a decent markup. But I'd actually be interested to see what the actual markup is of an actual, like an actual MacBook Pro. Or something like that. Or a MacBook. Anyway. So the one key draw to this is obviously the power efficiency over Apple's existing, processors. But again, is that power efficiency going to mean a cut in performance, though? And probably initially, I would say probably yes, if I had to guess.
Well, actually, there's one thing to consider, is that they've been using Intel. And we all know that Intel hasn't been doing very good in the foundry department. Meaning their process size is, it's a lot bigger than what the others are using now. So, it is possible that significant efficiency gains could be realized just by lowering the process size.
This is true.
And I mean, I highly doubt that Apple's going to put a 12, 10 nanometer chip in the new MacBooks. It's probably going to be 7 nanometer. And I don't know who fabs their
TSMC, I
mobile.
believe.
Yeah, I figured it was.
I'm pretty sure they're TSMC. See, here's the thing.
It's going to be TSMC. It's almost guaranteed to be a 7 nanometer part.
And here's the
better
thing.
than anything they were going to get from Intel.
Now, this is interesting, and it's an interesting thing that you bring that up, because Apple is actually one of the best ARM processor designers that's out there, which could really help them.
Perhaps.
And could deliver, honestly, like industry-leading performance within the mobile CPU market. Now, here's the thing, though. Mobile CPU. How does that translate then? And it makes sense then that they would be starting with a Mac, like a Mac, right? Or a MacBook, excuse me. Not a MacBook Pro, a MacBook. How does this translate eventually, though? So there's like the MacBook, which is like. I didn't even
know there was a difference.
There is. So there's the.
I thought they were all called MacBook Pro.
No. There's the Mac.
No, sorry, not all of them are. You're right. There's
the
Air, right?
Well, I think they've dropped that.
I'm not an Apple expert.
I think they've dropped that branding now. The Air was supposed to be these new thin and light, when that was a big thing. But no, there are the MacBooks, which are supposed to be like the consumer style, like everyday laptops, right? And then there's the MacBook Pro, which is supposed to be for pros, which is supposed to generally have better specs in it. And then you have like the iMac Pro. Now you have the Mac Pro. So there are different lineups here. But yeah, so the interesting thing will be is that even though, so Apple, again, is one of the most, one of the best ARM processors, processor designers out there right now. And I think a lot of that shows through in products like the iPad, the iPhone, things like that. Can you, and I think in a MacBook, you'll probably do all right. Can you bring that performance though? And this is where it's going to be interesting to see. Can they bring that performance to the desktop?
Who knows?
That is where I really wonder how this is going to work for Apple. Can they bring that performance to the desktop? And it makes sense that they would start with something like a MacBook. You already have a portable device that is probably more well-suited for an ARM-based processor while they're trying to figure out how to build more performance into something like this. And, advance and move their production forward if this is in fact the route Apple wants to go. And we've seen Apple make their own processors before. We've also seen that, I don't know if I would say blow up in their face, but we've also seen them move away from that. But then again,
to be fair, it's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and Apple's had a lot of practice with it.
And they have got a lot more experience with that now.
Exactly.
I think that they won't have any problems with it. I mean, just without really any information about what they're doing.
That's true.
I doubt they will have any issues.
I just really want to see. I want to see what the performance.
If they do have issues with it, we won't see a product.
No, we won't.
Because they will not release anything that doesn't, as we say, just work.
Right. I really want to see what it's going to be like. I just, that's the part that I'm super unsure about is what does it look like on the desktop side of things? Mobile side, I think they've got down. It's bringing that performance to the desktop, though. Can they do it?
They don't seem to have any issues with releasing stuff that, quote unquote, just works, except just works very, very hot. So I mean, I guess we could see something like that, but I mean, it's it's unlikely, very unlikely, I would say.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm not sure. That's going to be the interesting thing is can they bring it to, can they bring that to, oh, okay. The heck is going on? Why are my, is OBS like freaking out on me? That's weird. Anyway.
I don't know.
We keep dropping from like 30 frames to like, yep, we're at like 26.13 frames per second now, 24. That's not right. I don't know what's going on. We're still streaming though. We're still doing fine. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so. Oh yeah, it's coming through on the stream through that way. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So that's gonna be the big thing. Can Apple scale it to the desktop? We'll see. Apple believes that they can deliver better products than Intel, and they're gonna obviously start with smaller MacBooks that will allow Apple to compete with Intel for right now. So anyway, speaking of chip manufacturing and things like that, Intel shortages could last until 2023. Zach.
Interesting.
Well, see, here's the thing. So TSMC reportedly is not going to make extra capacity for Intel. So reports say that Intel has placed orders at TSMC to fabricate their chips for them. Now, Digitimes report points to the partnership being a temporary one, however, because unlike AMD, Intel manufactures their own chips.
Most of their stuff, yeah.
Exactly. And here's the thing. TSMC does not see Intel as a long-term customer, which makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it makes complete sense.
So it's unlikely to build additional fabrication capacity to meet the contracts, basically, that would be set forth or that maybe are there. Because here's the interesting thing, and it does seem maybe true, is that TSMC sees itself right now as more of a rescuer for Intel than a long-term supplier. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. Yeah, you're right. TSMC is right here. Is if Intel is going out to them and saying, hey, can you, produce chips for us, right? I don't know exactly what those negotiations quite look like, but in the end, it is having TSMC probably manufacture some of their chips for them. It does really make you wonder, is that like Intel basically saying, oh crap, we need help, like we need somebody to rescue us? And so what does this mean for Intel? Is an interesting question. I probably should have done some more research into this because this is interesting. What does this say for Intel? Is Intel in trouble here? Are they not in trouble here? I don't know.
They have a lot of money. They'll probably be okay.
They have a lot of money, but what does it mean in terms of...
a while, at least.
What does it mean for the manufacturing for them, at least? Well, obviously, it's going to push things back until 2023. But does this add to the growing list of problems that Intel seems to be having with moving their node process forward? And it's also interesting that they're going out to TSMC and basically saying, hey, we need help. What does that say?
They seem too prideful to do something like that. I'm surprised they do.
Yeah, but TSMC is basically giving them the giant middle finger right now and basically being like, no, screw off.
I mean, TSMC's friends with a lot of companies. I don't think they really... Honestly, good for them being in the position to flip off Intel like that.
And they actually, and you laugh at that, but they basically are telling Intel to kind of go, like,
go shove it.
Yeah, basically.
They are, they're making stuff for NVIDIA, they're making stuff for AMD.
Exactly.
And they're making stuff for Apple. Those three alone are just gigantic companies that, yeah. Although they might not be making the new NVIDIA cards. We talked about that already last week, I think. But yeah,
Really?
I'm sure they're still buddies with NVIDIA.
Yeah, so Intel typically manufactures its own silicon, instead of jumping to like third parties, which we talked about before. We said it a little bit earlier here. This is interesting though. So TSMC actually does work with Intel, to build some chipsets for them and FPGAs for Intel. Do you know what an FPGA is?
It's a specialized part that I don't remember what it does. Something really specialized.
Yeah. Let's see here.
I think I know what it stands for. Let me check if I'm correct.
Let's see.
Oh, is this like a firmware chip?
No, I don't think so.
Something that would be used to store firmware on.
So CPUs and GPUs dominate the mainstream hardware scene, so it's often easy to forget that there are other computing paradigms? Paradigms, excuse me, yeah. Paradigms used in more specialized applications. Take FPGAs, for example, short for Field Programmable Gate Array.
There you go, I guess.
So CPUs and ASICs, application-specific ASICs. Thank you.
Close enough. I mean, it's an acronym. I guess you can pronounce it however you want.
Application-specific integrated circuits are the two polar, or actually, I guess, two polar opposites of the computing spectrum. As the name suggests, ASICs, ASICs are hardwired pieces of silicon that are meant to run specific algorithms. Those are the fastest and most efficient chips possible, as they only do one thing that they're manufactured for, but consequently, they lack the flexibility to run other algorithms. CPUs, meanwhile, can be freely programmed to run any software. Now, FPGAs fall in between those two extremes. At their core, FPGAs consist of millions of so-called logic elements, or gate arrays, which is the last part of the FPGA name, or the last part of what the FPGA name refers to. A logic element is quite simply just a lookup table, also known as a LUT, or truth table, that stores the output for all possible input combinations. So, for example, a 2-bit LUT could have 4 distinct inputs. Any guesses as to what those are? Remember, it's binary here.
Yeah, so different combinations of 0 and 1.
So either 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, or 1, 1. The lookup table will then tell you how a Boolean function gets evaluated to true or false. For each of those possible inputs, simply put, FPGAs look up the answer instead of having to fetch, decode, and execute instructions like a general purpose CPU would. So there you go. I still have no idea what they really actually do. But yeah.
I understand.
You understand? Okay, so please kind of sort of put
Basically,
it in.
Basically, if I mean, by what you said, it's something that it doesn't actually do any calculations. It already has every possible answer saved, and it just looks for it.
Oh, okay, cool. Now, whether that's actually true or not, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah. But yeah, so Intel does work with or TSMC does work with Intel for some of that stuff. Now, TSMC's 7-nanometer capacity is already quite booked with the likes of AMD, NVIDIA, and Apple. So there you go. Now, here's the thing. So there will be a little bit of capacity that frees up from the falling out of TSMC's Huawei collaboration in September. So I guess TSMC was like doing stuff for Huawei, and then like Huawei turned into like this like giant like Chinese spying conspiracy company kind of thing, and yeah. I actually haven't heard a bunch of like anything else. I guess like Huawei's kind of like disappeared. We haven't heard a bunch about it, have we?
No. But I don't know. I mean,
I think they're bigger in like China and like
Yeah, they're. as I understand
and
it,
Asia.
you'd call them like the Google of China, pretty much.
Really?
They're pretty big there.
I
Well, actually, maybe not Google, because Google's like more of a software company. I don't know. They, they're up there. They would be at the level of Google and Microsoft and Apple and such in China.
So here's the thing. Because of this, it wouldn't surprise us to see Intel, if they haven't already, jump at this opportunity of some freed up, capacity, right? Here's the thing, though. And this is where we were talking about, where you were like, well, I'm not quite sure if Intel is actually giving them the middle finger. Or excuse me, TSMC is giving them the middle finger. I think they are, and here's why. Because TSMC is not desperate. Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, then maybe I misinterpreted. But here's the thing, is that... I think I said that. Well, I don't remember. But here's the thing. TSMC is not desperate for additional customers. They're fine. They've got more than enough going on. Now, before news of the delays in Intel's 7nm process, TSMC wasn't concerned about filling up freed up capacity either. So TSMC has been like, yeah, we're not too worried about it. And now Intel, and here's the thing, again, is Intel is now, it looks like, possibly crawling to them and basically saying, we need your help to kind of rescue us here and like save us. And TSMC is kind of like, nah. I'm sure.
I admit, it would be pretty funny to watch Intel squirm like that if I were them.
They may very well be here.
Or just offer them a very bad deal.
Well, that could be too.
Well, this is your option. Take it or leave it.
Because, and you know what? TSMC right now has the upper hand. Because they're not desperate for Intel. They've got more than enough going on. Intel's desperate right now. So, it'd be interesting to see what happens with this. Now, TSMC reportedly won't be creating additional capacity to meet Intel's needs, and that could mean that there is going to be continued shortages for Intel for quite some time. Now, Intel does expect its manufacturing process to be on track by around 2023.
Oh, how many times have we been down this road?
I know, right? I was just going to say that. I was like, yeah,
so this time for sure, right, Intel?
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
For sure. Okay.
But it is interesting. It really is interesting, to see what happens with this. It's interesting to see Intel, though, go to a third party for help with manufacturing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it does kind of make you wonder maybe what's happening over at Intel. Again, I'm sure the company's fine. But you know what? I think there are some things to maybe be a little bit concerned, though, is that if Intel can't get their butts in gear and figure out how to advance their process node here, what does this mean for the CPU market? Does AMD continue to advance, in their processing and things like that? Do the tables flip here and we start to see AMD pull some of the crap that Intel has pulled? Because I think this is the important thing here. At some point, if AMD, surpasses Intel enough-ish
They couldn't do that for a very long time, I don't think.
Maybe not overall, but at least in the prosumer market.
As long as Intel's not broke, AMD can't afford to take that chance, I don't think.
Maybe not through their full lineup, but maybe in the prosumer world. But what does that look like for pricing? Because there's nothing there, or I shouldn't say there's nothing, but there is potential for there to not really be anything to keep AMD in check. And that's what I worry about. And I don't know the full story. Maybe there really isn't anything to be too concerned about. I just wonder what that looks like in the prosumer world.
My take never say never, but I don't buy it yet.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how Intel moves forward with their with their processing of or their advancement of their their process nodes and things like that. But right now, this is it even funny anymore, or is it just getting to be at the point where it's just kind of sad now?
I mean, they're not. Well, I don't know. I mean, Intel's really not yet at the point at the low point that AMD once was. So who knows?
No, but if they continue on this trend, they soon will be. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough. But
really.
It is interesting to watch. So anyway, but moving on. Time for everyone's favorite part of the show. And that is Microsoft news. So, this week, Microsoft's Edge browser was crashing if you had this set as the default search. Any guesses?
Bing.
No!
Okay.
Google!
Suspicious, I think.
Microsoft's new Edge browser started randomly crashing. It happened on Thursday night when users typed into the address bar. Now, the issue appears to have affected Edge users who had selected Google as their default search engine. You know what's funny? They're using Edge, right?
Yes.
But their search engine they're using in Edge is Google. Because presumably, what would you expect would be the default search engine in Edge?
Bing, perhaps?
I would imagine it's probably Bing, which is really funny. That they're using Edge, right? Actually, I opened Edge today on a computer for some odd reason. I was trying to look at a PDF or something like that. That's what it was. It's actually kind of funny how close it looks to Chrome. There are subtle differences here and there, but it actually looks pretty close to Chrome. I mean, it's based on Chromium. But like, you know how like in Chrome there's the little like login thing? Like it looks basically identical except for with like Microsoft's login. I know, right? Like, way to go, Intel! Way to think outside
my homework, but you got to change something so the teacher doesn't think you did. I got it covered. Don't worry.
So Microsoft investigated the problem and now says it believes to have been resolved. The crash started around 7 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, and it affected both macOS and Windows users. Now, Microsoft did resolve the problem around 4 hours later, and it's not clear.
Edge on Mac?
Huh?
People use Edge on Mac?
Presumably.
Why would you willingly download that?
I don't know. You used to be able to use Safari on PC. You know,
why you'd do that either, but okay.
Hey, Safari is actually not that horrible of a browser. It's better than Edge.
Is it as good as the others, though? I didn't think so.
I used Safari for a very long time, and I was actually very happy with it. It was definitely better than Internet Explorer.
Wow, it's better than actual trash. Dang. You got a winner.
Now, it is not clear why it was only limited to Google search. Not clear. But it only happened with Google. Now, users that would switch back to Bing search engine within Edge wouldn't have a problem at all. It would work fine. So, Microsoft recommended turning off search suggestions in Edge as a temporary workaround. And it is now recommending that Edge users revert any settings that they changed as the status bar crashes have now been resolved. Microsoft also recommended uninstalling Edge and installing Chrome. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually a joke, but...
Oh, okay. I was going to say, are you serious?
No, but apparently if you download Edge, it's basically Chrome with like a Microsoft skin on it. So, you know, you might as well just download Chrome anyways. And it doesn't suck. So, I think it's a little unfair. Because Edge has, I think, kind of been, shall we say, rebuilt from the sort of kind of ground up. Well, actually, I take that back. It has been rebuilt using probably a decent majority of code that Google has made, because apparently Intel is too incompetent to make their own browser.
IE was the king for a while.
You know why, though? Actually, you know what?
Windows.
You know what yes. You know what the king was? You know what browser everyone used before Internet Explorer?
Oh.
Take a random guess.
Thinking of Netscape.
It was Netscape. It was Netscape. Netscape. Which is interesting. I was watching something about this. So Netscape apparently eventually got bought out by AOL. And actually, if you go to netscape.com, it redirects you to AOL.com.
Interesting, I suppose.
So yeah. But no, you're right. So yeah, actually Netscape was like super butthurt over this, and like I think sued Intel or something like that. Because
what did Intel have to do with that?
Or not Intel, excuse me, Microsoft. Because Microsoft included Internet Explorer directly within, Windows, and so they were like had like this monopoly kind of thing going on where like they own the software and then they own this other piece of software that people something with like markets and or free markets and yada 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 and all this stuff. So, anyways, but yeah. So there you go. There's your Microsoft news. Moving on back to Apple. Apple was conflicted over the right to repair stance. Emails are now showing. Apple hasn't always known what to do, or what position to take on the right to repair policies and legislation. At least that is according to recent published internal emails. 2019 discussion provided to Congress for its antitrust investigation highlights Apple PR's team struggling to keep public messages cohesive and amid covering internal repair developments that seemingly open up Apple's
so basically, they're struggling to spin
ecosystem.
things as good for the consumer, huh? Is that what's going on?
I don't know. An email exchange, or email exchanges as part of the trove of documents published by the U.S. House Judiciary Committee that surrounds the antitrust investigation into Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook, apparently, is where all this stuff was from. Now, the first hearing took place over 5 hours on last Wednesday. And all the CEOs of these companies called in remotely. But they were all part of this. Now, in one email, Lori Lodez? Anyway, she's the former director of corporate communications for Apple, highlighted multiple incidents in which Apple seemingly supports more repair options while simultaneously opposing legislation in multiple states.
Okay.
And it's no secret. Apple's policies are notorious in the repair community, and they're not good.
I don't know how anyone could even spin that as... I'm sure they will do their level best to spin it as positive.
Now, independent providers have had to pay to actually become ASPs. And until last year, that was the only way that you could actually receive genuine Apple parts. And even now, I still think you have to jump through a bunch of hoops. And And Apple can just deny you for whatever reason. Last I knew. So like you can apply, but Apple can just be like, nah, we don't want to, no. Just no. Yeah. And even now that Apple has somewhat opened up this ecosystem a little bit here, independent shops still can't get all the tools or parts that they need to fix stuff. And they're limited to only certain repairs that Apple is allowing them to do. Like screen repairs and things like that. And of course, the right to repair advocates want, state legislation that would require Apple and others to put manuals online, make tools available, and sell genuine parts, which would be awesome. But Apple has argued that it's dangerous for people to open up their electronics. Now, hang on. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Yes, it could be. On the other hand...
Yeah, just like technically it could be dangerous to go for a drive in your car because you could just get, like, whacked by a semi and be dead. But the chance of that happening is pretty low, so we accept the risk.
Actually, let's come back to that.
Your phone, your battery could just explode randomly. It could happen. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
Okay, hang on.
Low the chance is
you're right.
happening.
You're right. Hang on. Let's come back to that in a second. Hang on. But yeah, so Apple's argued that it's dangerous for people to open their electronics, and it's difficult, and security could be compromised if independent shops have access to diagnostic tools. There is some truth there.
Okay. They'll give the diagnostic tools to a very low-paid worker at a Geek Squad.
Okay.
I don't think they're worried about it. But I can assure you, those people, they don't get paid enough to care.
Now, this is interesting. So some issues come to head. They came to head on March 25th, 2019, when, get this, 2 iMac manuals were put online.
How could they?
Now, a freelancer for iFixit spotted and sought comment. This is interesting. The environmental technology team at Apple apparently put them up, but others at Apple wanted them taken down.
Of course they did.
So this is
repair dollars are gonna go.
And
to
this
waste.
is where we see that that back and forth of Intel being conflicted with the right to repair. You've got one team over here that's like, let's publish these manuals. You've got this other set of people over here that are like, no, this stuff can't get out. It cannot get out. No. So Apple is also, and I don't know where this is at right now, but apparently was going to be working with a third-party repair service to launch like an at-home repair service. Of course, one wonders how much that'll cost.
That'll be 90% the price of your new phone to fix your old phone. Ooh,
actually, I'll tell you something in a second here. Apple's repair policy is often touted as the industry's most aggressive, which is true. Using proprietary screws and parts that only approved repair shops can access. So yeah, let's come back to this real quick here. The Apple argued that it's dangerous for people to open their electronics. Yes, there's some truth to this. Okay, yes, you're right. You're right, Zach. Yes, you could potentially be smoked by a semi. Tractor trailer.
But people still drive cars every day, so...
Here's the thing, though. One could argue, though, that removing a lithium-ion battery from a device is not as trivial as driving a car. Now, here's the thing about this, and I think this is interesting, is it's dangerous. It could be viewed as dangerous to try to repair your own device. Now, here's the thing, though, and this is what people are arguing, and I think there's definitely some truth to this, and we'll see if you agree, is Apple's saying it's dangerous to perform these repairs. Now, here's the thing. Is it as dangerous if Apple publishes steps to do it safely? Because here's the thing, they
Absolutely
don't.
not.
They don't, which means that people have to figure out how to do it on their own. And I mean, there are places like iFixit that are obviously trying to bridge that gap.
But to be fair, not everyone knows about that.
Right, exactly.
Somebody might just go and order a new screen off of eBay or a new battery off of eBay, and they don't know what iFixit is, and they just thought they could order a new screen and just do it themselves.
Actually, I've seen this happen before. Hang on, I'll talk about it. I'll talk about something that happened the other day. But yes, so there is that argument. There is that if Apple were to just publish guides. And plenty of laptop manufacturers do this already. I can go to Dell, I can go to HP, and I can get service manuals. Yeah, they're technically designed for, service providers, and they actually say that on them, but they don't restrict me from having access to those things. And you know what? It probably is safer for me to disassemble a device knowing how to actually disassemble it.
That's a novel concept.
I know, right? So there definitely is that argument there of, so Apple's position on this whole thing is, well, it's dangerous, or taking it to a third-party repair shop could pose risks. What is the quality? But here's the thing: what is the quality of the stuff that they're using? Well, there wouldn't be a question about that if those third-party repair shops could purchase genuine Apple stuff. Then so it's kind of a moot point at that stage. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah. So yes, I think in the current state right now, there is definitely a lot of things that could potentially be dangerous. In terms of, and I say could potentially, I think the biggest thing to worry about when repairing any device, but Apple devices, I mean, is either breaking something, which, is not ideal, but the actual, like the biggest, injury risk, I think would probably be a battery blowing up. Beyond that, you're probably fine. Yeah. But again, if you publish a guide that specifically says from the manufacturer, hey, by the way, here's how this device comes apart, yada, 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 does it make it safer? I would argue yes. So, avoid this particular thing and, avoid doing this. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I don't think we'll see. I think without legislation, I don't think we'll actually see Apple change anything.
Oh, no way.
And you know what? Here's the other thing, too, is there's also the argument here of by publishing guides like this and things like that, people may be more willing to repair their own devices, cutting down on the amount of e-waste that is out there. Because
but that also cuts down on money.
It does. But people will elect to probably repair their devices over purchasing a new one. So anyway, but I wonder if, and obviously it wouldn't probably be as much as a new device. Actually, it might be. I don't know. It depends on what markup looks like. But And one could argue that there may potentially be more markup potential for just selling parts. Think of it this way. A battery is probably pretty, especially in bulk. If you put a large order in, it's probably decently cheap to produce lithium-ion batteries. Now, I don't know how much each one costs, per, manufacturing cycle, each one cost, but I can't imagine that it's probably super expensive. And when you consider that, let's just say that, you know, a battery costs Apple $3 to manufacture, or something like that. Now, obviously, you add in some additional costs for, you know, other things like that. But let's say all in. Apple's break even on a battery is maybe $10. You know, you could sell that for, and actually, that wouldn't even be break even, you know, because you're going to make that up with your profit. But, you know, let's say that it cost Apple, you know, maybe $3 to produce a battery, and they can sell that for, I don't know, $30, right? There's a decent amount of markup to be made there. Is that markup more? Do they make more markup? And I would probably argue yes. Is there more markup there than selling a brand new device?
Well, probably not if they aren't already doing it, but sure.
I would probably argue that there actually is. Because think of it this way. So
there's some to be made, but not as much as there's not.
Yeah, but there's no risk of liability. There's no.
Of course not.
Exactly. I would almost argue that it's cheaper. Look, here's the thing. If somebody comes into our store and says, hey, can I buy a screen from you? I want to do the repair myself. I am more than happy to sell them a screen. And here's why. Because I'm going to make a decent amount of profit. I'm actually probably going to make more profit. Actually, I will. I'll make more profit off of selling them the screen than I will by doing the repair. Because think of it this way. Not only do I have to pay for the screen, I have to pay for the shipping on that screen to get to the store. Now, granted, that's bundled in with a lot of other things. But then we also have to take all that and pay an employee to actually do the work. Plus all of our fixed costs. Yada, yada, yada. If I sell a screen, right, I cut out that person, I cut all that labor. And there's no risk associated, you know, there's no risk to me because at least in our store, no returns, no warranty. So if they take it and they break it, it's not on me. If I put that on there, not only is somebody having to pay me again for the labor of putting that on, but if I break something, then that has to be replaced. And there's more money coming out. So, I don't know. I think Apple actually could make it profitable. I don't know why they don't want to do it. But yeah. And I mean, I'm sure Apple makes a decent, fair amount of money repairing those devices themselves. So that's probably part of what it is. But anyway, yeah. Moving on. Our last main topic for this show this week, which is, yeah, the Twitter hack update thing. So I guess this took, so early July 21st, the FBI, the IRS, the U.S. Secret Service, and Florida law enforcement placed 17-year-old Graham Clark of Tampa, Florida, under arrest. 17 years old, Zach.
There you go.
He's accused of being the mastermind behind the biggest security and privacy breach in Twitter's history. Yeah, so they are calling it a breach. So I guess he took over accounts like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Apple, there's a whole bunch more. And it was to perpetuate a huge Bitcoin scam. And I don't know exactly whether that was supposed to be through Twitter or if it was like selling those accounts. I would imagine it was probably more something along those lines or something like that. I'm not quite sure. Now, they say that maybe he wasn't alone. There's also a 22-year-old named Nima Feliz, Fazeli? Maybe it's Fazeli, in Orlando, and a 19-year-old guy named Mason Shepard in the UK. Now, there are two individuals in custody under, and then there was also maybe an unidentified minor in California that also admitted to federal agents that helped sell access to accounts. Now, authorities believe Clark was the only one who got access to Twitter's internal tools and actually may have directly carried out the scam. Now, allegedly, he and this is where you're probably thinking. So allegedly, he convinced a Twitter employee that he worked in the IT department of Twitter. And Twitter says it fell victim to a phone spear phishing attack. So there you go. Look at that. Even Twitter is susceptible to phishing scams.
Lovely.
And basically, he tricked the employee into giving them credentials. So, look, if your IT department ever comes to you, let me ask you something. Will you ever ask for an end user's credentials, Zach?
No.
Thank you. Never ask for it.
If I want your account, I can just reset your password and log into it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't need to ask.
I
also don't care to do that.
It does lock out the user, but at this point you don't care. Well, if you change their password.
I mean, I've had to do that for troubleshooting, I guess, but whatever.
Now, Shepard was found out partially because, this is hilarious, he used a personal driver's license to verify himself with the
how can you be
Binance and Coinbase cryptocurrency exchange?
How can you be, like, smart enough to pull this off, but so just astronomically stupid at the same time?
Because if you, I don't know, maybe you've got a lot going on and something just slips through the cracks inevitably.
That's a very large crack.
I know. Now, Shepard is being charged with computer intrusion, wire fraud conspiracy, money laundering conspiracy. And the most serious of those charges comes with a 20-year fine, or 20 years in prison, and a $250,000 fine. Fazeli is also, man, you've got two people here because he also used a driver's license to verify with Coinbase. He's facing 5 years in prison and also a $250,000 fine. He has one count of computer intrusion. And then Clark is in jail and being charged with over 30 felony counts, including organized fraud, communication fraud, identity theft, and hacking. And here's the thing to know. He's being charged as an adult. Law enforcement is considering how bad the consequences of that hack could have been. And they say it could have been beyond $100,000 plus in Bitcoin. So there you go. But yeah, they're saying that the majority of this could have just been done by this one guy, which is kind of interesting. So there you go. There's your latest update on the Twitter hack thing. So, yeah, one more thing here. So Google is going to remove all Danish music from YouTube. Negotiations on a joint Nordic agreement on the use of music on YouTube are currently in full swing. The agreement will replace the local agreements of the Norwegian, Finnish, and Danish composers and songwriter societies, combining them into a single joint agreement with Google. In the case of Coda, whatever the heck that is, I don't know if they're if they hold rights to music or something like that. The national agreement for Denmark expired in April, after which it was temporarily extended, which I guess is standard practice in the industry while negotiations are taking place. Now, Google have issued a new demand. In the agreement, it is to be temporarily extended. Coda must agree to, get this, reduce the payment provided to composers and songwriters for YouTube's use of music by almost 70%.
Oh, dang.
Despite the fact that YouTube's use of music has increased significantly since Coda entered into its last agreement with Google. Now, of course, Coda could not accept those terms, and Google has now ultimately decided that Coda's members gonna have their content shown on YouTube, and that their fans and users on YouTube.
So whatever happened to you can just put anything within reason on YouTube?
I mean, you probably can, but I would imagine that Content ID is probably gonna block it somehow.
Is it going to be blocked only in certain places, or what? Like that's just.
I
That sounds
don't
ridiculous.
know. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how this is all going to work, but and maybe it's just on Google or like YouTube Music or something like that. I don't know. That's a good question. I honestly don't know. It just looks like they're gonna pull a bunch of like Danish music stuff off of the platform. So, but yeah, interesting. Oh yeah. So I was gonna talk about a couple things real quick. In the right to repair stuff. So the other day I had somebody come in, and they had a tablet. I don't remember what it was. It was like an LG or something. It was like an LG tablet, I think. Yeah, it was an LG tablet. And they had purchased I'll see this from time to time. They had purchased like a repair kit on Amazon, presumably Amazon or eBay or something like that. And then of course brought it into us to like have us do the repair. And we see this from time to time, not very often. Although on this particular one, guess what they ordered?
Something wrong?
No, I don't know, because we couldn't even do it. They ordered just the glass.
Problem.
Problem for us, because I don't know about you, but I've never done a glass only repair before. And my understanding is that it's not easy. Something about a bunch of heat, and then you gotta like take like a wire and like separate the LCD panel from the glass, and you have to do that without wrecking the LCD panel, which is super fragile. And then you gotta like readhesive the new glass to the panel with like this weird like I think they use something like Loca or something like that. And then you have to like make sure that like there's no like dust or anything like that gets in between them, and air bubbles, and yeah, it's a process. And it's not a common one that I think at least local repair shops do. Obviously there are these bigger companies that like will take stuff and like remanufacture them, and they've got equipment for that. But yeah, so they bring in, this person brings in just the glass, and I look at them like, I'm sorry, I can't do that repair for you. I mean, I can try, but I'm going to destroy your LCD panel, and you're going to be screwed anyways. And I'm not going to assume liability if I wreck the LCD panel, which I most certainly will. So anyway, so that's one that happened. And then I had another person come in today with one of the brand new iPhone 11 Pro Maxes. The fully kitted out, like Apple's top of the line. I'm not exactly sure quite what happened to this one, and it's one of the worst phones I've ever seen. I think it's the first time I've ever told somebody I cannot fix your phone.
Wow.
The screen was shattered, of course, and the back glass portion was actually like separating. Like the frame was like coming apart.
Dang.
It was bad. Now, a couple problems. First, the screens on those, at least the repair itself, is over $400.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The second problem is that while I do have vendors that can get me back glasses, again, this is a whole something about a laser, and then you gotta like adhesive it to the back of the front. So it's not something we could do. If we're gonna do back glass repairs, we have to replace the whole frame. I have one vendor right now that shows a frame in like the rose gold color, and it's out of stock. But I think when I kind of totaled everything up, you know, with tax and everything, I think it was going to be like a $700 some repair.
Yikes.
At that point, you might as well just buy a new phone. And honestly, what I've been telling people with these new iPhone 11s, when they call in, I'm asking them, do you have insurance on your phone? And if they do, I'm telling them, don't even bother bringing it to me. Use your insurance. It's going to be far cheaper.
That's fair.
Yeah, you know, our entity is very much about like customer relations, you know, customer relationships and things like that, and building, you know, strong ones and good ones. So yeah, obviously the point of a business is obviously to make money, but at the same time, like, you know, if a person has insurance, it's far cheaper to just go that route. It's not necessarily as easy, or as quick, but it's, you know, from an ethics standpoint, it's way better to tell them to do that. The other one that I've seen within the last couple days is people coming in with iPhone 5s and iPhone SEs, and I'm honestly telling them it's not worth it. They want to put batteries in them. It's not worth it. You know, you're going to put $60 into a device that honestly probably has another, at least in terms of support cycle, probably another year, maybe 2. So I'm telling them honestly, and a lot of the times, do you know what? You know the reason why people hang on to the SEs for so long?
Because they're small.
Exactly. People love that. It's usually a lot of older people. They love that small size. Although the brand new SE that dropped is only a tad bit bigger. And one of the arguments that I'm making for people is, hey, the screen's a little bit bigger. You can make the font size a little bit bigger on it. So anyway, I mean, my mom's got a 6 and she doesn't mind the size of it. Then again, I never gave it the option of a 5, which I don't think was available, and I wouldn't have sold. I wouldn't have said get one. Actually, I don't think we went for a 6. I think we went for a 6S. Which is still a decent phone. So, yeah, it's probably getting up there a little bit in age, but it'll be fine. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of the latest on all that stuff. It's kind of funny to watch the trends, you know, move. I'm starting to see a lot of, I'm starting to see more like iPhone 8s come in now for batteries, as they've been out for a couple years now, and they're starting to get to that point where they need replacement batteries. You know, it's always funny. You can always tell when Apple is like, wow, that was a horrible design, because they'll change it in the next generation. Because Apple eventually realizes that they have to fix these devices. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, I don't have anything else. So, that is our show this week. Thanks for joining us, and, we will be back next week, presumably. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Oh, that's lovely. Hopefully people can still hear us. Hang on. Let me check something.
Yep. What have you done?
I haven't done anything. I don't know. OBS is freaked out here. The webcam is frozen. Yeah, the webcam is completely frozen. It's just a frozen frame of me. It's been a frozen frame of me for a while. Yep. People can still hear us. And it's, oh, this is hilarious. The background is still playing on the live stream. But yeah, the webcam is completely frozen. That's weird. That's interesting. Maybe that's why I was having issues earlier. But yeah, no, people can still hear us, which is totally fine. So, it just looks really weird. So I'm not quite sure what happened with that, but anyway. Yeah, so, you can't see me wave goodbye, but, thanks for joining us. And, we will hopefully have all our problems resolved next week, and we'll talk to you then. Bye!